I said last week that success would be the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but that waterway remains blocked. This Easter, the president issued a stern warning to Iran demanding the immediate reopening of the strait. If the ZUA launch a military operation soon to open the strait, what military force would realistically be required?
Let me tell you that we have the capability to open the strait if we decide to do so. And what you are seeing now are what I would call the precursors to the initial steps of such a campaign. The goal would be to reduce Iran's ability to fire missiles and rockets at ships in the strait and to neutralize their fast attack boats. Think of them as powerful speedboats with outboard motors, quickly moving in to slip between ships and cause direct damage. We're going after all those vessels. We use A-10S planes, attack helicopters, and slow-moving vehicles. Low-altitude platforms are effective. We're in the process of removing them right now, and we're also eliminating Iran's stockpile of mines. Mines are dangerous. There were thousands at the war's start, but we've definitely reduced that number now. Of course, just a few mines are enough to block global transportation. All of this is already underway now because it's necessary to reduce those numbers to a low level before sending warships to the strait. I have no idea what Admiral Cooper's decision-making process will be like, but we're on track to achieve all those planned objectives.
They reopen the strait by air and sea, or it requires troops.
It can be opened with an air and naval campaign, and the use of ground troops would be through incursions. An incursion is an attack with a planned withdrawal and no intention to stay. The only exception might be Kurd Island. I know the president has already talked about this. I think it has a unique place in Iranian culture for a reason. If you control it, you're on Iranian soil. Secondly, it's the vital point for their oil supplies. By controlling it, you can cut off that flow, severely hurting Iran's economy, and maybe even use it as leverage in negotiations. Besides, you don't permanently damage the economy by destroying the infrastructure. That's why I think Kurd Island is a very lucrative target. We're definitely looking into that right now. I have no idea if we'll actually go there.
Charlie Daggett, thank you. We're here with the former CENTCOM chief, General Frank McKenzie. General, happy Easter.
Same to you, Ed.
It took almost 2 days to find the missing systems officer after the jet he was on crashed in a remote and mountainous area of southwestern Iran. The weapons officer was hiding in a crevice in the mountains, says a senior government official. What's your assessment of the search and rescue operation?
So, I think I would take 2 lessons from this, Ed. First, the excellence of the joint force, our ability to move quickly to search for a downed crew member. We train for this nonstop. Every time we send a crew into enemy territory, we have detailed and elaborate plans to rescue them. It's a basic part of who we are as American fighting men and women. So that plan went into action, and I think it was carried out very effectively. Since there's always someone on the ground, maybe wounded, they need to get to a place where they can hide until we get to them. All of that seemed to work very well. And, we actually lost some aircraft on that mission, but I would say it takes a year to build an aircraft. It takes 200 years to build a military tradition where no one is left behind. You would take that trade for the aircraft any day in a situation like that. The other lesson, I think it's a pretty tough lesson for Iran. First, they weren't able to find the missing crew member. Second, they made a broad appeal to their people to turn him in. And they offered a reward, for any kind of lead. That doesn't seem to have been successful. And that would be, I think, maybe a sign of discontent. But you can't be happy about that if you're a high-ranking leader in Tehran this morning.
Yeah, Iran's Revolutionary Guard is now claiming responsibility for attacks on petrochemical plants in the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They warn that their attacks on U.S. economic interests will intensify if attacks on civilian targets in Iran are repeated. Iran and its allies can still inflict significant damage now.
Ed, they really do have the capability to cause significant damage. They don't have the capability to achieve mass effects. And by that I mean firing many, many dozens of rockets, missiles, or drones. That capability has been constantly worn down since this campaign began. And frankly, after more than 30 days, I think Central Command must be reasonably satisfied with where things stand now. Actually, Ed, when I was the CENTCOM commander, if they had given me this situation in 30 days, I would have rejected it for being too optimistic. So we had a good effect. The effects of our actions will continue. Launching missiles and rockets will get harder for them. We may not reach zero soon, but everyone knows there's still time ahead. But I think we're on the right track. The campaign is moving forward effectively, and the pace should pick up every day.
Regarding your previous point, the president said something interesting to Fox News this morning, revealing for the first time that the United States earlier this year sent weapons to the Kurds in northern Iraq and northern Iran for use by protesters. He suggested that the shipment was intended to make the Iranian people rise up. But on Wednesday, in his major speech clarifying what the war is about, he said that the campaign is not about regime change. If they are now arming protesters, what could that signal?
Well, I think you should pressure that regime in every possible way. Arming the Kurds certainly increases pressure on the Iranian regime. We know from history that the leadership in Iran responds when existential pressure is applied to the regime. Arming the Kurds takes you one step closer to that. Even if your ultimate goal is not regime change, bringing the regime in Tehran to a point where they make a deal that pleases us will be the inevitable result of intolerable pressure applied to them. I think all this contributes to that.
You said last week that success for the White House is the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but that vital passage remains blocked. The president on this Easter morning used strong language to threaten Iran into reopening the strait. If the U.S. launches a military operation in the coming days to open the strait, what will it take militarily?
Well, let me. First, we have the capability to open the strait if we want to. What you're seeing now are the precursors and initial steps of such a campaign. It's necessary to reduce Iran's capability to launch rockets and missiles into the strait against warships and to eliminate their fast attack boats. Think of them as cigarette boats, large, powerful boats that move forward and slip between ships to cause direct damage. What we do is hunt all of them down. That's exactly where the A-10s, attack helicopters, and other slow, low-flying aircraft are extremely effective. We are in the process of eliminating those vessels right now. In addition, we are working to eliminate Iran's stockpile of mines. Mines are dangerous. There were thousands at the beginning of the war. We've certainly reduced that number a lot. Just a few mines are enough to block global shipping. That's happening right now, and you need to reduce those risks before sending your warships to really test the waters in the area.
In our last 30 seconds here, General, sum this up. The president said it would only take 2 to 3 weeks. Do you agree, or will it take longer? No.
You know, I always hesitate to put a timeline on a military operation like this, but the Iranians would do well to listen to President Trump when he says he's going to strike them, because he's already proven that he's willing to do it. So based on his last statement and what we've done in the war so far, if the president says we're going to do something, we're likely to do it. The Iranian leadership should pay attention to this fact.
Right. General McKenzie, happy Easter. Thank you for coming this morning. We appreciate it. Thank you.